Hey friends, 2024, it's been a crazy year for me. I haven't had a lot of free time. I've been working very long hours throughout the beginning of this year, so much so that I've given up a lot in life. I've sacrificed a lot. Thankfully, I have not sacrificed my health. I've been exercising and working out, but I've sacrificed a lot, such as this YouTube channel. I haven't been here for a while, haven't had a lot of free time. Thankfully, I'm here in Orlando, Florida right now, enjoying some spring break with the family and kind of getting back, recovering, recuperating. But I want to talk in this video today about dividend stock investing on a very limited time budget. For those of us who are really busy, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what I have done so far this year and how I approach the situation when I don't have a lot of time, how I continue to keep doing what I'm doing with my dividend stock investing. So many of you know already from Patreon. I'll link to that in the pinned comment below. But basically this year so far, I have been going pretty big on the higher yielding positions in my portfolio. In fact, I made Altria, ticker MO, one of the largest positions in my portfolio. Thankfully, the stock has trended up since then. So I've not only seen some capital appreciation, but I locked in a starting dividend yield of about 9.5%. Amazing. And also I made Realty Income, ticker O, it's a REIT, one of the largest positions in my portfolio. That one is yielding more around 6%, and it's not a qualified dividend, but nonetheless, it is meaningful income for me at 6%. I made that one of the largest positions in my portfolio. Why did I do this early in 2024? I think it was a reflection of what I was going through. I worked so hard, so many hours, and I faced a lot of stress, a lot of loss of sleep. Even before this vacation here in Orlando, I only had 2 hours of sleep the night before our flight, and it was painful getting up so early. And I even wondered at times if all of this work was worth it. In the end, I think it will be, but that's an interesting question that I want to ponder in the video today. But basically, the reason I started off this year with some of the higher yielding positions in my portfolio is to build up that passive income quickly. And the reason for that is I am getting closer to semi-FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And I can only go through so many more cycles like I did this year in January and February, especially in my life. I can only do it so many more times. And so I realized that, and I realized that, look, I'm not only about long-term dividend yield on cost right now, I need immediate yield right now because I can only do what I did in 2024 so many more times. Now that I built up on Altria and Realty Income, I've also started moving into some of my core positions this year. I started loading up on PepsiCo, ticker PEP, Johnson & Johnson, J&J, and even a little bit of Starbucks, ticker SBUX. Those are my core stocks. And one of the reasons that I started loading up on those is, well, I see value there, but two, I know those stocks really well, and I've been working so many hours at my job, so many crazy hours that I just don't have time for a lot of stock analysis. And so I had to buy what I already know. I had to buy the stocks that I'm very comfortable with. I had to buy the stocks that involved pretty much no analysis at all. And so that's kind of a reflection of where I'm at as well. I started buying these stocks because I just didn't have time to really look at anything else. And so in the video today, I want to talk about just this concept of investing, dividend stock investing, for those of us with limited time. But I also want to talk about this concept of limited time at a high level, because so many of us dividend stock investors in our journey, in our cycles of building wealth, of building passive income, there will be seasons when we have limited time. I had limited time this year because I was hustling. I'm sure many of you at home can relate to that as well, as you're in your own journey building up your active income to eventually build passive income through dividend stocks or even through real estate as well. I'm doing an impromptu video here. This is my first one in a while, so I hope it's okay with the background noise. I have my little Stanford notebook that I used to have in those early days because I jotted down all of my notes last night. So I'm gonna kind of scan down here, look at my notes really quickly, but one of the things that I wanted to start out with is just general strategy. And so general strategy for those investing with limited time, I would say number one, especially for a more novice investor who may not know about individual stocks or may have not spent a lot of time researching individual stocks. I've been investing for well over 20 years, and I know certain stocks like Johnson & Johnson like the back of my hand. And so I know those stocks really, really well. And so it's easy for me when I have limited time to buy those. But for someone with a little bit less experience, someone who's newer to dividend stock investing, someone who is working really hard to build up that active income to invest, one great option, honestly, for any investor who has limited time is just to look at ETFs. For example, I own the ETF SCHD. That's a stock or an ETF throughout the rest of this year. I actually plan to build up quite a bit. I'm really excited about it. I have actually a treasury bond maturing in May, I believe, a pretty good tranche that I'm going to take the proceeds and I'm going to go ahead and deploy all of it into SCHD. I'm really excited about that. But for someone who has limited time, an ETF, a really great ETF like SCHD can make a lot of sense because that completely automates the process of stock selection, managing a portfolio, those kind of things, so that it's easier for the investor to focus on building active income to invest. And so that's one strategy. The other strategy for investors who are more seasoned like myself, who really understand the individual positions, is to also supplement or completely supplement instead of ETFs with individual stocks. But like I said, it's important when one has limited time and no time to research to really go after individual stocks that one knows very well. And so after I started building up my immediate passive income earlier this year with Altria, with Realty Income, I also failed to mention Pfizer as well, PFE, that's a 6% yielder. I'm really excited about building up that passive income in that one. I went just when I had limited time for the stocks that I know so well and that I believe are at values right now, like Starbucks, J&J, and also PepsiCo as well. I've got some visitors here, by the way. I'm going to see if I can show you that really quickly. These guys spooked me a bit here. But there's my visitors during the video today. So I love it here in Orlando. This is a great break here. Shout out to all of you in Florida. Put in the comments below if you live in Florida or you like to visit here as much as we do. What a beautiful state. And so anyway, that's how I approach investing with limited time, and I think it can work for dividend investors. In fact, I think dividend investing is an amazing strategy for investors with limited time, because dividend stocks, oftentimes the type I buy, are set it and forget it. These are positions that I can rely on, that I have held for decades, that I'll continue to hold for decades. There's not that much ongoing research I need to do with PepsiCo, for example. I know that stock, and I know it's not going to fail me. I can buy it at just about any price and do all right. But I have even more sleep well at night kind of mentality with something like SCHD, because there's literally nothing that goes into that because it's all automated for me, being an algorithmic ETF. And so I love that. And it's important as someone who's working hard, honestly, to have a stock investing strategy that does not take a lot of time. I oftentimes think that the hardest part of dividend stock investing is building up the active income to invest in the dividend stocks. The hardest part is what I went through in January and February this year. I worked so hard, so crazy hard, built up just some great results, and went really aggressive with the real estate side of my portfolio, which is awesome. I shared some of that with my patrons. I'll link to that in the pinned comment below for those of you who want to check it out. But dividend stock investing and passive income investing in general is such a great strategy for those of us who are looking to go for that path of building a lot of active income to invest and don't have a lot of time for investing. But I also want to share in the video today just a few general thoughts and a few questions that I think are really important to ask yourself, because I shared just some of my story on Patreon, and it was great. I got some feedback from some patrons. Shout out to all of you. And they were saying, Ian, this is kind of relatable. I've been through stuff like this as well. Thank you for sharing your story. And so I thought out on YouTube I'd share this as well, because hopefully it is relatable for a lot of you over there. In terms of the questions, I like to ask myself, one, is it worth it? Is the work that I'm going to embark upon worth it? Seriously, I can only do it so many cycles, and what was worth it when I was younger may not be worth it as an older person. And so for me personally, as I ask myself each time I go through these cycles of working really hard to further my passive income, I kind of look at it, can I do what I did in January and February again and again and again? Is it worth it? at a certain point, honestly, and I'm getting really close, it's not worth it. And so I think it's important to be honest with oneself. And also it's important to ask the question, is there an end in sight? If I had to do what I did in January and February this entire year without an end in sight, it wouldn't be possible, it wouldn't be sustainable. And so if you are out there, you're trying to grind it out, you're trying to work really hard, you're trying to build passive income, you're trying to kind of go from being more like a turtle, slow and steady, to actually doing more like a cheetah, like a sprint, trying to get really far ahead and build a lot of active income or that you can deploy into passive income really fast, just remember to ask yourself those questions. One, is it worth it? And is there an end in sight? And ask yourself those questions each time you go through the cycle. For me, I have some general rules as well. In terms of rules, it has to be worth it. And that question, I might answer it differently each time I go through a cycle of working so hard. And there must be an end in sight. There absolutely has to. Thankfully, I'm here in Orlando. I got to the end, but just barely. I shared more of my story over on Patreon, but this was tough. This one hit harder. This one was harder to recover from. I had worked really hard, and as I get older, in terms of kind of, is it worth it? I don't know if I can do a cycle again like I did earlier this year, where I took up all of my time to work really hard. Now, thankfully, I did exercise, so that was great. And so never forget health. If you are going to go through one of these periods of working really hard to grind it out for dividend stock investing, to make that active income, it's important to remember health. It's important to remember an end in sight. It's important to reward yourself along the way. If I didn't have the reward of coming here to Orlando at the end of this journey, I don't know if I could have motivated myself to get through it all, to get through all of the work. And it's important to remember that there's an alternative. It may not always be worth it, and at a certain point when the investor hits a brick wall, it's okay to delay that fire date. It's okay to look at semi-fire. It's okay to look at lifestyle deflation, geo arbitrage, different alternatives to just working so crazy hard, where at a certain point it may not totally be worth it. And just remember to constantly assess yourself as a dividend investor, because your goals, your mentality, your ability to work so hard changes over time. But we're all trying to do the impossible. It's not so difficult to pick the ETFs, to pick the dividend stocks. I mentioned a ton of the stocks in the video today. The hard part of it all is what I did in January and February, which is working so hard. And I think a lot of you at home know that as well. It's a long journey, but we have to keep motivating each other in this community. We have to keep in great health and just keep focused on the prize, because we're going after the impossible, but if we work at it long enough, we will get there eventually. And I'm so excited to have a video again. I'm excited to be back here on YouTube. It's been a while. That's something I sacrificed earlier this year, and I was sad about it. I miss all of you. I can't wait to see you in the comments. Before I go today, in terms of a full disclosure, I do own the stocks mentioned today. I'm long Pfizer, ticker PFE, Realty Income, ticker O. I'm also long Altria, ticker MO. I'm long PepsiCo, PEP, Starbucks, SBUX, and I am long Johnson & Johnson, J&J. Check out my Instagram. I'll link to that in the pinned comment. I'm going to share fun photos, maybe even a reel from our vacation here in Orlando, and some cool Starbucks tchotchkes I picked up in the store. Many different Starbucks stores, including the one over at Epcot. Before I go, in terms of a friendly disclaimer, today's video, it's not investment advice. I'm not a licensed investment advisor. Today's video is just for fun and entertainment. If you're going to go out and invest in the stock market, please consult your licensed investment advisor first. It's possible to lose money in the stock market. I'm just sharing my journey for fun and entertainment. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to click the like button. I love you all. I'll see you in the next dividend stock investing video.